friends. This week we are taking the skills that we learned last week when we created surveys, and we're going to go one step further. We'll be learning how to create and how to read bar graphs using the information that we collected from those surveys. So let's do a quick review of surveys. A survey is a collection of information or data. And last week we made our own surveys about our favorite snacks, our favorite colors, our favorite foods, how we got to school, things like that. In the surveys we created, we kept all the information or data on a piece of paper with the total votes for each item. That data can be interpreted into a bar graph as a visual. So here are some examples of bar graphs here. These are both great examples of bar graphs. You can see why they are called bar graphs because of these bars here. Look at the first graph of the favorite snack. These are the results from our class and the class next door of the survey we did last week. I took that information and translated it into this bar graph. When we added the results from both classes, we got that 5 people liked popcorn, 2 people liked crackers, 4 people liked trail mix, 7 people liked cheese as their snack, 5 people liked vegetables, and 9 liked fruit. So when we created those surveys, we wrote all the information down on a piece of paper, but when you put that information into a graph, you can see it, I am lost. When you put the information into a bar graph, you can also see the same thing. So you can see here that fruit had the most votes. Can everyone see how the numbers from those surveys are represented in these bar graphs?
Yes.
All right, still here, some of you are confused, some of you got it. So let's look at this other bar graph here. It looks a little different, doesn't it? The bars on this graph are going up rather than going sideways. This graph is based on a survey I found online showing the amount of pounds of fruit sold at a grocery store in one day. A bar graph can be shown in either direction, but it is the same type of information. Look at the apple column. That's the first column here. Starting at the bottom where it says apple, follow the bar up to the number 6. That shows you that 6 pounds of fruit were sold that day. If you go over to the lemon column, you can already see that it's shorter. So follow it up and you can see that 5 pounds of lemons were sold that day. So does everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to say a couple true or false statements about this graph. And I want all of you to respond by saying either true or false out loud. So ready? Here we go. True or false? More cherries were sold than lemons.
True.
Good job. True or false? The same amount of peaches and grapes were sold.
False.
That's right. It is false. There were more grapes sold. True or false? There were 4 pounds of limes sold that day.
True.
Okay. And last one, true or false? There were 8 pounds of peaches sold that day.
False.
That's right. You guys are amazing. It sounds like you're starting to kind of understand how to read a bar graph. If you were given this graph or this graph, would you be able to answer questions about it? That is our goal today. You will be making a graph of your own, and then you'll also be answering questions about some other graphs. This way you know how to make one and how to read one. And when you look at both of these examples of bar graphs that I've got up here, what do you notice is the same about these two? Jamie, can you tell me something you notice is the same?
I don't see anything.
That's okay. Let's look at it together. What does the fruit graph have on the top of the graph?
A title, just like a book.
That's right. All graphs need a title at the top so that we know what the graph is telling us. The snacks graph has a title also. And notice that both sides of the graph are also labeled with what we call subtitles. The snacks has one here, the fruits have one here. On the fruit graph, we have the labels pounds of fruit sold and fruits. On the snacks, we have number of votes and snacks. So now that you know that all graphs need a title and subtitles, you will also need to have your scale amounts labeled. This one is counting by ones, whereas this one is counting by twos. But this will need to be labeled on all of your graphs. All of that information helps, with all of that information, it makes sure that both graphs are clearly labeled so that at a quick glance, you can read that graph. Alright, I am going to be passing out a bar graph worksheet that we're going to start together. There you go. Let me turn the vision. I'm going to put mine up here on the board so everybody knows where we are. Okay, we are going to start this as a class, and then you're going to be working on the rest of it with your partner. So make sure you put your name on it as soon as you get it. Before we read the questions, I want you to look at the graph. Samantha, can you tell the class what the title of this graph is?
Students' favorite colors.
Perfect. Does everybody see that the title is written clearly at the top of the graph? Anytime you create a graph, you need to make sure that you have a title. So next, Jason, can you tell me what those subtitles are?
Going up and down, it says number of students, and on the bottom it says students' favorite colors.
That's right. He got both of them on there. At the bottom of the graph, it lists all the colors, and on the left it shows the number of students who liked those colors. The scale on this graph is counting by twos, just like our favorite snacks graph did. And I want everyone to see that 0 on all of the graphs that I showed you starts at the bottom, and then you count up from there. You will never have a floating bar. See how they all touch the bottom line? Anytime you do a bar graph, the bar needs to touch the line. So now let's look at the bar graph and answer some questions. How many students chose blue as their favorite color?
10.
Very good. Now which color has the least amount of votes?
Green.
Bless you. Great. Now we can answer some of the questions together as a class. Let's look at number 1. We've already answered this as a class. It says, how many students chose blue as their favorite color? And we already know the answer is 10. So number 2 says, how many more students chose red than green? So I want you to look at your graph and go to red. Andrea, can you tell me how many students chose red as their favorite color?
8.
Great. Now can you tell me how many students chose green as their favorite color?
2.
Very good. So now we know from looking at the graph that there were 8 red and 2 green. And the question asked how many more red than green were there? And we can find this answer by taking 2 away from 8. So what is 8 minus 2, class?
6.
Alright, I want everyone to make sure they're answering and following along. If you don't know the answer, it's okay, but I don't want anybody to get left behind just because they weren't paying attention. So let's skip over to number 7. It says, if 2 less students had voted for green, how many votes would there have been?
4.
Thank you, Joey. But you added 2 more students. Let's listen to the question again. If 2 less students had voted green, how many would green have? When we see that word less, we know that we need to take away. So try again, Joey. What do you think the answer is?
Is it 0?
That's right. Very good. Now I think you can kind of start to see that there are all kinds of information that we gather from these bar graphs. This graph began as a survey, just like the ones we did last week, by asking students what their favorite colors were. That information was then translated into this graph. Now with your partner, I want everyone to do a think, pair, share and complete these questions. Don't forget the ones we skipped. Raise your hand if you have any questions, but I want you to try and work with your partner first. and try to get these finished. If you need to work some of the math out on the back of the worksheet, that's fine. So take about 7 minutes to think, pair, share, and then we'll be moving on. All right, you have just about 2 more minutes to finish these up, and I've had a few of you kind of struggle with number 8. Number 8 says to list all the colors in order from greatest to least number of votes. Remember, we learned earlier this year that the word greatest means the biggest, and the word least means the smallest. So the question is asking you to put them in order from what's the biggest one to what's the smallest one. So take about 2 more minutes to get these finished up. All right, time's up. It looks like everyone was able to finish, which is great. If you didn't get finished, that's okay. There'll be time later in the day to complete these and get them turned in. But now for the fun stuff, guys. We've got candy. So I'm going to pass out a packet and some M&Ms for you. Do not eat them until the end of the project. As always, I want you to start by writing your name. You will be working as a group, but everyone is responsible for completing their own packets. We will start these today, and if we run out of time, that's okay. We can finish them tomorrow. So I want you to open your packets to the first page that says problem, and it has that question mark made out of M&Ms on it. Elizabeth, can you read that question to the class, please?
Does a bag of M&Ms have the same amount of M&Ms for each color?
Perfect. Now turn the page in your packet to the next page where it says hypothesis. Okay, a hypothesis is an educated guess. I've got your scientific method up here on the wall to give you some reminders. But it usually begins with the phrase, I think. So with your pencil, you're going to be marking either yes or no. Listen to the question and then mark your answer. Do you think a bag of M&Ms has the same amount of M&Ms for each color? Yes or no? So now the next box down there says we are going to test it. It says we'll be using small bags, but we'll actually be using a large bag of peanut M&Ms. Excuse me. And turn the page one more time. It asks you a question. Can I fairly share my M&Ms by color? By doing this activity, you will be able to find the answer out. It will help you determine if there's an equal number of each color of M&Ms in the bag. So, each person in your group will have their own bag. Everybody should have one. But you can help each other, help fill out your graph, and help count and sort if you need to. On the procedure section of your packet, you're going to be following these steps. First, you're going to open your bag of candy, and then you are going to group them by colors. So, and then you'll be counting each group of M&Ms and record the number of each group of M&Ms on your graph using the group's color. So, for example, if I'm counting green, I will be using a green marker or a green crayon, whatever you have at your table. But skip over step 5 because we'll be comparing yours to the people in your table later in this activity. If you look on the next page in your packet, you should see a graph that looks like this. This is where you'll be coloring them in. Okay, so let me start. Let's pretend I'm counting my yellow M&Ms, and I see that I have 4 yellow M&Ms. So I go to the yellow, and I would color in 4 yellow M&Ms. And you're going to do this for every color that you have in your bag, and then I want you to write the total number of M&Ms right here on this line. Okay, go ahead and get that started with your groups. As you color in your graph, I want you to compare your numbers with the other people at your table. See if every bag has the same number of blue, green, yellow, orange, and so on. Once you fill in all of your colors on your graph, turn your packet to the last page and write your own conclusion about what you learned from this activity. Start your conclusion with, I learned that. And then go back and see if your hypothesis was correct. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to work on this and get these started. Alright. I'm so proud of Group 1. They're working so quietly and helping each other out. Good work, guys.
Thank you.
Right. So I want everyone to look at their M&M's graph that they just colored in and see how this is similar to the bar graphs that we created earlier. This activity took a survey of the amount of M&Ms in each color, in your M&M bag. And then we turn that data into a bar graph. The lines of M&Ms are representative of a bar graph. If you look at other people's bar graph at your table, you'll see that no two are the same. So before you eat your candy, I have one more quick graph that we are going to do as a group, and I'm going to borrow your pink marker. So up here I have another M&M's graph. And this is the last worksheet that we're going to be doing in this section. As a class, we're going to make one more bar graph showing our favorite color of M&M. I want everyone, one at a time, to come up here and write their name above their favorite color. I will start so that you see what I'm talking about by writing my name above the color orange. Okay? And then can I have Nick's table come up here next and y'all write your name in? Okay? Alright, so now that we have the whole class has their names up here, we have created another bar graph. And then we can see that no one chose brown as their favorite color. This last worksheet was another way of showing you how a survey turned into a bar graph. So we took the surveys we did last week and we turned them into bar graphs. We took surveys that we did today and turned them into bar graphs. So let's review once more some of the things we learned today about bar graphs. Ben, can you tell me what we call the information that we took from the surveys and put on the graph?
Data.
Good job. Who can tell me one more thing every bar graph needs? Yes, Amanda, what does every graph need?
A title.
Good job. Title, 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 title. So let's remember that every graph needs a title, and we make graphs by using the data we collected from a survey. Everyone did a wonderful job today. This whole week we're going to be learning different types of graphs and learning how to make them and how to read them. There are many types of graphs that are used for all different types of data, and we will learn a few more this week. I'm going to say a couple more true-false statements. Again, I want you to say your answers out loud. True or false? Every bar graph goes sideways.
False.
False. They can go either way. True or false? The bars on a bar graph sit on the edge of a graph.
True.
True. They always touch the edge of the graph. I want no floating bars on your graph. Next one, true or false? The graphs we learned about today are called line graphs.
False.
False. Today we learned about bar graphs because the numbers are represented as bars. True or false? The groups of M&Ms we made, the graphs of the M&Ms, that we made earlier were all the same.
False.
False. Everyone had a different amount of each color of M&Ms. And last one, true or false? There are many types of graphs.
True.
True. We only learned about bar graphs, but we are going to be learning about many, many, many more this week. So, very good class. I'm so proud of all of you. Thank you for a great math lesson today. Your homework tonight is going to be, to create your own bar graph on this worksheet. I will read it to you right now, but I want you to complete these at home. It says, 35 students voted on their favorite sea creature. Crabs were the most popular choice. The results of voting can be seen below. Create a bar graph using the space below. So this is favorite sea creature vote count. 14 crabs, 7 sharks, 5 whales, 5 dolphins, and 4 eels. So you're going to be using this chart here to create your bar graph. Don't forget everything we talked about today. You will need a title and subtitles and a scale measurement. So you can ask your parents for help, but I'm pretty sure all of you are going to do awesome at these. So good job today, guys. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and line up for lunch.